Welcome to Pen Night Radio, where we slay our personal demons and arm ourselves to write our best content. It's another unfiltered evening. I hope you are prepared for that. I have some very, very exciting things to reveal to you this evening. So let's get started. And we're back. So I'm talking off the cuff. As I said, I'm very excited to broadcast this to you. You are listening to this on December the 2nd, 2023. And some of you may remember that on December 1st of 2022, I embarked on the 365-day challenge. The 365-day challenge, in case you haven't heard of it, is a personal challenge where you set your goals for the year and you commit yourself to doing something and posting about it every single day of the year. Andrew had done the challenge in 2020, and that was what led to the birth of the Sanguinary Song, which, if we're being honest, as his debut, was the birth of his career. His career as an independently published author, which has been extraordinary. And I want to do the challenge too. So I did. And my goal, with a lot of projects left unfinished, was I was going to write 800,000 words in a year. That equated to about 6 books, 6 new drafted books. And they told me at the time that it was a pretty lofty goal. So how'd it go? Well, I got a piece of paper in my hand that's going to tell us just that. If you're listening to this on Spotify, you might you might not be able to see my face and know that I'm how I'm grinning right now. But I promise you, I'm not going to read off all 365 days. I'm just going to kind of run through it, and I really want to talk to you about my reflections. Like, as I was recording this information here, specific days in the challenge last year started coming back to me, and those days have lessons that I think are worthy of Pen Night Radio, where we help you turn that blank page into a full page. So let's dive in. This is the 365-day challenge. Day 1, 2,200 words. That, so you know, or in case you don't know, was my minimum. I wanted to write a minimum of 2,200 words a day from last December 1st to tomorrow. The first day I did 2,200. The second day I did 2,200 plus 40. Then I did 2,800 plus 9. And it just went, from there, I went all the way to day 16. Writing just over 2,200 words. On day 16, it was 2,355, with the best day looking like day 9, where I was able to write 2,581 words. But, besides word counts, 16 straight days of writing, 16 days. Give you a little bit of background. Last year, the year before I started the 2 years ago. Can't you tell I'm not very good at math? 2 years ago, during the year before the 365-day challenge, I was not writing as much as I was not writing a lot. I had written The Children of Arc in about 4 months in 2019, but after that, I ran into a lot of trouble productivity-wise. And during COVID, I had an especially rough year. I did do tremendous edits to The Children of Arc, but after I completed those edits, and after Carrie helped me with those edits, I feel like I lost a lot of creative energy, and I just wasn't doing a whole lot. And I went back to school. I went to do my master's degree. I did 4 classes at once in my first semester, a second semester. It felt like I was literally just getting rid of, Netflix, video games, reading. and on occasion writing and just sitting at my desk when I wasn't at work. I was already teaching at the time, at least substitute teaching. I was just sitting there doing work after work after work, and I really just didn't have time to put into writing. And it struck a chord with me because I hear that story a lot. I hear that story a lot. People tell me these awesome ideas that they have. I say, wow, that's awesome. When are you going to write them? And they say, well, I'm not. I don't have the time. And I'm aware of like at least a dozen people I know with this untapped creativity that presumably is just not going to be tapped into. And it was the whole premise of Pen Night Radio. I wanted to make a podcast where I could encourage people, if you're in that position right now where you have ideas, but you just don't think you're going to sit down and do this for any reason under the sun, not the least of which is busyness, general busyness. I just wanted to make this podcast to let you know you are a knight, you are a pen knight, you are able to do amazing things with your talent. And look at this, the 365-day challenge. Okay, I jumped ahead there. So after that unproductive half of a year, NaNoWriMo came around, and I was still doing NaNoWriMo at the time. And I wrote a whole short story in November. And I was in about 2, maybe 3 days. And I was so blown away by how productive I was able to be in November. I wanted to keep it going. I didn't want December 1st to come around and just end it all. So I wanted a new challenge, and I told Andrew and I told Carrie I wanted to do the 365-day challenge. And first 16 days of the challenge, I wrote 2,200 words a day. At the time, that was huge for me. I had no idea that I was capable of doing that. Yes, I wrote a lot of words every time I did NaNoWriMo, but not that much. Not that much. It was crazy. And I don't say that to brag. I'm not bragging. Trust me, I'm not bragging. When we get down this list, you're going to see why I'm not bragging. But just imagine you're in a place where, you know, you're thinking, am I going to write? Am I not going to write? Am I going to start a new book project? Am I not going to start a new book project? Do I have time for this? Is life changing? Am I headed into a different season? All these weird, dopey questions I was asking myself that I know people do. I just decided to do this darn challenge. And for 16 straight days, I broke my productivity records. So the 17th and the 18th, it says 0, 0. For those 2 days of the challenge, I wrote 0. I'm pretty sure those are probably the days that we moved to our new apartment, Carrie and I. I learned that when you're packing up to go, you can probably find a minute to sit down and commit yourself to a word count. But the day you actually go, the day the movers come and you get, yeah, no, nothing's happening that day or the next day. That was the lesson there. And then, so we go a little bit up and down, up and down. On day 21, I did over 3,000 words. Again, on day 22. Day 24 here, it says I did over 4,000 words. On day 26, that was the day after Christmas last year, I wrote over 5,000 words. And it just keeps going up and down. 3,000, 5,000, 4,000, 2,000, 4,000. Day 33, I did 6,000 words. Folks, what I'm looking at here is nights. I usually call you nights. What I'm looking at here is just, for 16 days, it's 2,000 words. And then for a little while, it's nothing. For day 17, 18, 19, 20, I really didn't do much. And then all of a sudden, I come back after some rest. And for 2 days straight, it's over 3,000. And then I come back again and it's over 4,000, and then 5, and then 6. And that's exactly what Stephen King said. With consistent daily writing habits, even if you miss a few days here and there, if you're trying to do 6 pages a day or 3 pages a day, 2,000 words a day, you find that some days you start breaking your records. You start going farther than you planned on going. Yeah, I mean, what I'm remembering from the 365-day challenge, it taught me just that. If you have a goal and you have a willingness to work at that goal on a daily basis, then not only are you capable of meeting that goal, but as you continue working and learning new skills, the things that you are able to do will surprise you. you'll have to chuckle because you'll be looking back at a version of yourself just 1 year ago that was kind of trying to gauge everything you were not capable of doing. Well, maybe I could do 1,000 so that I can still have time to do, you know, my taxes and my workouts and, get in a nap somewhere or whatever. You understand what I'm saying? You were talking to yourself, kind of setting yourself up for what you knew you couldn't do. But when you take a challenge like this, which is just get up and do 2,000 words, budget out the time and do the darn thing. All of a sudden, you're doing things your previous version of you had no idea that you were even going to be capable of doing. Let's continue. From days 34 to 36, it was an even 2,000. Day 38 was 5,777. I read that number to you because I just happen to really like that number. 1 5 and 3 sevens. Is that bad luck? Is that some kind of bad luck? I don't know. I don't know. I think it's an interesting number. 39. Day 39, 3,759 words. That's kind of a cool number too. And we go from day 40 to 46 with pretty much an even 2,200 words. The 47th day, I have a note here, was Martin Luther King Day. I always put up a post on Martin Luther King Day because MLK is very important to me, and just what I do in general, education wise. And yeah, I do remember that was a pretty cluttered day. I didn't really write anything personal, and maybe because I knew I just wanted to put up that one post and not post what I was writing or what I was doing or how many words I'd written. I think I kind of just let myself relax that day. The next day, I did a 2,200 even. By the way, I was working at the time at where I'm a middle school English teacher, so I was actually getting up an hour before work every morning to spend time in my office, and do this. I got to tell you, I haven't been able to do it this year. We'll get to that later, but that was probably, we're all individuals here in the writing community, and you'll find a if you're going to do something like this, you'll find a schedule that works for you personally. For me, I love that early time of day when the sun's first coming up, because having ADHD, and this is something I had planned on talking about more in November before, the whole NaNoWriMo thing happened, and we really wanted to talk more about that because November is National ADHD Awareness Month. I don't know if you knew. And ADHD makes it easy to get sidetracked. I've been sidetracked a couple times in this very podcast. I keep, going left and right to different points that don't necessarily need to be said. And the thing about the early morning is that it's such a quiet time. It feels like everybody is still asleep. There's nobody who's going to call. There's nobody who's going to open the door. There's nobody who's going to send an email necessarily at that time. Those things happen throughout the day, and they happen well into the night sometimes, depending on, what you got going on. But typically, I've always found that dawn hour is a time where if I'm up and I'm alert, I've got pretty much nothing to do but what is right in front of me. And there are so few opportunities for me to get distracted. And then the next thing I realized was that it's fun. I'm not getting up, getting in the car and going to work. First, I'm getting up and doing something that is so fulfilling to me and is just the cornerstone of everything I want to do in life. Just, being in a different world, dreaming about fictional people, having weird conversations with different parts of my own mind through dialogue between two characters I made up. Like, it's just, reasons why writing is fun. I mean, it was such a great way to start my day. I'd make myself a little coffee. I'd put it on this lovely little cup warmer that we had and put it right next to my desk. And I'd maybe bring some breakfast. I'd make a sandwich and bring it to the table with me. I mean, I'd done this twice. I did it once when I was writing after Children of Arc in 2019. And that fell through when I got a different job, and it started me an hour earlier. And I was just like, I can do 5 a.m. I can't do 4 a.m. And when I got my current job, I found that I did have some of that time available again. So, and that was a big part of the initial 47 days productivity. If you're going to do something like this, there has to be some kind of consistent schedule you can keep. I'm not saying you can write at all different times of the day if you want to try doing it that way, but there has to be like a minute, a specific point in the day where you get back to that desk if you're going to be as consistent as that. Yeah, so that's some advice I have about that. Okay, going on into the 50s. Um, the 50s have a couple of zeros. There was a couple of days I missed in the 50s. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I missed 5 days in days 50 through 60. So that was almost half. But I made up for it with all word counts over 2,200. Um, two of them over 3,000. Going into the 60s. Okay, so let me tell you something. Around this time, I was finishing drafting the sequel to Children of Arc, title in progress. I was drafting the sequel, which is very important to me because as much as I love, let me get it for you, for those who are watching on YouTube, this is a book made by me and also by Carrie, who was a tremendous help with it. As much as I love this thing we've created here, as much as I've wanted to write this specific book since 2011, and I'm so blessed and thrilled that it's finally come to be. It is a trial run. It is an example of me trying a new genre. It's me testing the waters of a new kind of writing in a new story that's meant to be the start of a larger series. It's an origin story for a character we're going to learn more about. So anyway, the second book was just so important, so much more important. I was just like, I might be able to grab their attention in book one with some interesting ideas and things that they hope will be expanded upon later. But if I keep them waiting any longer than book two, man, oh no, that's the end. At least that's my prediction, is that if you can't keep somebody past the second book in a series, it's highly likely that that series isn't going to go very far. And I was obsessed with, before I even got back to any other projects, just penning another installment in Calipar and just seeing if I could make it better than the first. I was crazed. I was obsessed. And a lot of the word counts I just read you were in that book. There were a couple of zeros when I either just didn't have time or was just so darn tired or just didn't have an idea for the next chapter yet, as opposed to the previous day when I wrote well over 3,000 words for it. Now, the weekend came around and we got to days 61 and 62, and I was near the climax of the novel. On the first day, I wrote 2,558 words. So, with a couple of zeros, with at least a handful of missed days, that was 61 days of the challenge where I consistently met my goal most days. And you know what happened on day 62? It was a Saturday. I wrote 17,341 words that day. Big shout out to Carrie. I was at my writing desk all day that day, all day, all morning, all afternoon, well into the night. I definitely think I stopped for meals, but that was pretty much it. Um, and to have a wife who is just cool with me doing that, who is content to kind of occupy herself and let me just plop down in front of the computer for a whole day. Carrie, honey, I love you. I could not have completed that word count if you were not so gracious and wonderful as a wife. So thank you again. Now, understandably, on day 63, well into the climax of draft one of book two now, I had just written 17K. I only wrote 861 words the next day. I was so tired that Sunday. I was so darn tired. It was only 861. I let myself rest. It is okay to let yourself rest when you're doing a challenge like this. I had a handful of days where I didn't write 2,200 words, but all of a sudden I wrote 17,000 in a day. I really felt like I had probably caught up with all the days that I missed. So I was comfortable resting. And you can be comfortable resting too. If you're keeping track of your milestones in a big challenge like this, you can rest. You can rest. and let your muscles, your creative muscles, build back up so that you can get even more out of your next workout. Speaking of which, 2 days later, I called in sick from work, had nothing to do all day. Carrie was at work all day, and I hit my record. I finished the novel that day, and the record for the 365-day challenge, 26,536 words in a single day. I stared at that number in utter disbelief. But I tell you, that is exactly how much I wrote. And now I got to trim the darn book down. Now I got to figure out why there's so many darn words in this one book. But contrary to popular belief, I'm not trying to write bloated novels. But man, words were flying out of me that day. I mean, it was special. It was special just to, I mean, if you're listening to this right now, you don't even know if they're good words. Like, this isn't me selling myself to you. You don't even know if they're good words. You might be like, well, that's great. You can write a lot of words, but are they good words? Are they boring as heck? Like, can you sell me on this novel, Alec? We're going to talk about that a little bit at the end. But it was such a blessing to have the knowledge that the 365-day challenge as an exercise in motivation that I had seen in Andrew's case was phenomenal. It was incredible that this challenge could exceed my expectations. I had no idea that doing this challenge would cause me to write that many words in a single day, but here we are. And I got to tell you, it is a great, fabulous, wonderful challenge. Okay. It also burned me out to do all that. Fair warning. I'm not going to sit here and be like, okay, after writing 26K in a day, I proceeded to be consistent with my goals for 10 days after that. So you feel like the person sitting at home that just doesn't got what I got. No, no. For the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days, I wrote zero, nada, zip. I basically, and I'll tell you why though. We were working on Children of Arc. It was done, but we were working on making edits to it because there was a lot that needed to be edited. There was some story changes that were suggested by early readers. So the hour that I had to work on those days did go into editing, and I edited maybe 6 or so pages a day, which is an hour of work. So I did keep working, but I didn't keep churning out words, which was what those were the specific parameters I set for the challenge. So I set the number to 0, but pardon me. Finally, Valentine's Day came around and I wrote 2,500. The next day, over 5,000. And it goes on from there. It bounces between 2,000 and 4,000, 3,000. There's a lot more zeros. We go into the 90s. And see, I was really disappointed. This leads me to my next biggest takeaway. I was so disappointed every single time I wrote no words or I only edited and I didn't write anything new. Folks, I had such an ego. I wanted to impress people. I wanted them to look at my account and be like, how does this guy write 2,200 words every single day for a year? I really wanted that. And every time I had to come on and say, hey, I wrote nothing today, it hit me like such a gut punch. But you know something? On day 92, I wrote 1,232 words. That's only half my usual goal. And there were a lot of zeros. But I made a note here because the post that I wrote on that day was that I felt like a different person. I hadn't written in a little while. I came back and only did half of what I said I was going to do. But it didn't matter because I looked back on all that had already been accomplished in the challenge, and I realized that I was getting something better out of it than manuscripts, bragging rights, whatever. I was getting something way better than anything like that. And that was just the knowledge that I was now a different person. Just like, the knowledge that I wasn't who I thought I was. I wasn't somebody who couldn't transform my writing and my brand. I was somebody who could, in fact, make a new dream happen. And I didn't make the dream happen. I mean, honestly, I'm very blessed. I prayed a lot. I leaned on my wife a lot for support. I was met with a lot of patience and a lot of support from all of you, the wonderful community on Instagram. That's where I was only posting on Instagram for most of the challenge. And honestly, like it was you all made me a different person. So, and then the next day I did 2200. I did 2300 actually. And the message of that day was never give up. Never, ever, ever give up. I was slacking for a little while. What, like it's close to 30 days out of this whole challenge. I was totally slacking after I was able to do that big word count. But all of a sudden I was back. I was back from failure and the challenge was still going. It was, and yeah, the message there is never give up. That was one of my biggest takeaways. We went to day 100, and by day 100, I had already written 242,000 words in just 100 days. And that was a milestone in my writing that I'm just so grateful for. When we get into the hundreds, we do see more productivity. I think this might have been around March, I'm going to say. March of last year, my first year actually teaching as a full-time teacher. We were headed into the third marking period, I think. The craziness of the end of the second marking period was dying down. People were starting to talk about spring break and end of the year activities. And I definitely remember feeling kind of an upsurge during that season. You know, I started doing 2200 again. It went up to 26, 3000, close to 4000. As we went all the way down to day 134, there are very few zeros on this list. I was writing very, very consistently that season. As we go into the 130s and 140s, I did a couple 5000s, a couple 4000s. And oh boy, then when we get into actually, what am I talking about? That was the end of the 130s. From day 140 to day 171, all zeros. So yeah, basically what happened was around the time that March rolled around, I was almost every single day churning out those intended word counts. And then for what looks to be like at least half a month here, I just crashed. I just crashed bad. It was probable that what I was dealing with at that time were problems in the classroom. I was a very, 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 very new teacher at that time, and it can be rough in your first year. You know, if you're listening to this and you're a teacher, you know what I mean. Like I was coming home, not necessarily with no motivation, but just so tired and demoralized and upset, and just my head kind of spinning about what things I could just start doing better that I didn't know how to do yet to ensure that these kids were actually learning and that the lessons weren't self-destructing. And I was walking away feeling like nothing was actually taught or processed. Um, you know, I'm not saying I came home with no energy, but I definitely came home a lot of those days just wanting to play video games or wanting to watch TV or wanting to let my brain rot. Just something that could let me rest from whatever upsetting experience the day had brought. But that went all the way into day 172. I managed to do um, 3,931 and then more zeros. Halfway through, we're halfway through the challenge now, just over halfway through. And as you can see, I was really strong in the beginning, but I was really, really, really struggling. Really struggling. I hope you weren't expecting a story of blinding success here, where you can't believe what I'm going to reveal to you next. No, on the first page here, I went strong for half of the challenge. And then as the year went on, the zeros just kept piling up. I just couldn't write 2,200 words a day anymore once I really started needing to do more at work and do more for college. That's another thing I forgot. In February that year, I went back to school, and balancing those last two graduate courses with all this was just murder. It looks to me like the 170s also and 180s also bring us into May, definitely into May. So spring break came and went. I was kind of sort of productive, maybe question mark. It seems like not a whole lot was done. despite having that whole week off and going into May. Yeah, day 182, 0 words. That was the day my that was yeah, that was the day I lost someone very important to me. I'm not going to say it on air necessarily because family might be listening, but yeah, that was a very tough day for me. That was not only a day where if you'll permit me a minute to be honest, I didn't care about the challenge. I didn't care about the challenge. Someone I loved died, and I didn't care how many words I wrote. Um, just, just no. I came home and it just basically cried hysterically. That's all you know. And the next day I was processing grief. You guys probably remember the post that I put up. I had a little artifact showing. And I did say something about the challenge. I cared a little more. The morning after, I was able to remember why this was important to me. It wasn't just to throw numbers at you or be like, look, I can write. I really wanted to, you know, get together with all of you, my supporters, and do something that left all of us encouraged. And so that day, I had to be honest about what loss I was going through and hopefully be able to provide an encouraging word because I know everybody listening also deals with loss and the feelings that come on because of that. So that was tough. And I know this got heavy for a minute, but I appreciate you listening to it because honestly, like these were the major takeaways from the challenge. This is a year of my life. And good things came out of grief. Day 187, Penn Night Radio, this podcast launched its first episode. Um, it was very hard to write word counts when that was happening. We have more zeros here. A lot of concentration between work hours went into preparing the podcast, knowing what I was going to say, writing words, but not enough words for the challenge to get ready to set up production. It all takes creative energy. It's hard to write if you're going to do multimedia. It's hard to write every day if you're going to do multimedia. Some days you're going to write, and some days um, you're going to do production. So, with that in mind, I want to take us on a short break, and I want to talk about some of the biggest victories of the challenge, which are coming up in a minute. And after that, I want to talk to you about what's next. You are still listening to Penn Night Radio. And we're back. So, this is interesting because once we rolled into the summer, um, I'm not really sure how I can put this delicately, but I'm hoping it'll leave you encouraged because when you started listening to this, you might have been thinking, "Wow, that's a big challenge," and it sounds like it was going very well. But I'm not really sure if that's accessible to me. I feel like if I try it, I might be consistent for a couple of days, but it won't go so well after that. Um, I really feel like we can unite in our shortcomings, though. You know what I'm saying? Like we set goals. If many of us listening here have published our books, which is an extraordinary feat of hard work and dedication and putting yourself through the grinder and just taking on the odds and overcoming imposter syndrome. Um, you know, we've all accomplished something, but every now and then we don't accomplish something, and we got to be okay with that. So that's why I'm telling you that once we rolled into the 200s, the 365-day challenge for me kind of sort of fell apart. Now, why do I say that? It's not because I stopped writing. I didn't. It's not because I stopped meeting my daily word count. I didn't. But I did stop posting about it. I did stop posting consistently on Instagram and keeping track of my days and sharing that challenge with you, for which I apologize. Instagram turned into all ads after that, and you probably didn't see me posting anything, even though I was. But, you know, I didn't really engage with any of you the way I could have. I didn't, you know, announce the 17K word count or the 26K word count as like a special reveal or anything like that. I didn't do it as a mystery box the way Andrew often does, something that could have gotten you excited, like, ooh, Alex got news. What's up? Let me click on it. And could have just kind of inspired more of a community sense. I didn't really do any of that. I just wrote. And in hindsight, I kind of regret that because it was supposed to be about all of us. And I hope that nobody listening here felt slighted by the fact that my posts just started disappearing. I will tell you that in the latter half of the challenge, I did write 33,000 words in a script, a screenplay, writing a screenplay. 53,000 words in a new novel, a standalone dark romance novel, which I'm very excited to start working with. Um, Counting the writing that I did for this show, Pen Night Radio, I produced about 23,000 words. In another secret project that I'll announce soon, I did about 8,000 words. And in another, so remember when I said I wanted the challenge to get novels done, novels that had started but hadn't finished yet? Well, in part, I got about 3 done, not 6. And my last 41,000 words were done in a series that I haven't even really mentioned to you yet. And I apologize for that. Don't we writers, take our outstanding unfinished projects and just shove them aside to come up with some new idea all of a sudden? It's great. It's great how we do that, isn't it? But I will say that well into September, which brought us to the release day of The Children of Arc in early August, which was a very, very exciting day. Thank you all listening for sharing that day with me again. Oh my goodness, there were takeovers. You were coming on to my account to talk about your books. There was a real community sense. It was really like a virtual party, and it was everything I could have hoped for and more. And there were sales on the day. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you guys for making that possible. And if you haven't yet, please go join the Calipar fans on Facebook. That's the series official fan page. All in all, I wasn't able to write consistently when I went back to teaching this year. I knew this year I had to put more into my classroom. Those kids deserved it, and it's been going well. I now go in, I don't write in the morning anymore. I now go into work an hour early to ensure that I'm setting up a robust, excellent curriculum for for that day, and one that won't leave me stuttering so much in front of kids who are trying to learn. And that's what I've been committing to every morning now. And I try to write at night around the same time that I occasionally record these for you too. So yeah, I guess I'll just give you the final count. Going into the fall, when the challenge really, really started to reach its end, and Halloween came, and then Nano came and went, and these last few episodes came and went, and all of a sudden, the very last day was in sight. Um, and I was on TikTok, kind of mentioning the challenge, but let's face it, if you've seen me on TikTok, it is kind of time for me to start something new. So the 365-day challenge is over. It's over now. If you're listening to this, it came and it went. I tried to write every day for a year. I wrote 545,000 words plus 606. No, actually, I forgot to add on 18K that I didn't account for, and it's actually 564,000 plus 52. That is my final word count for the challenge. And a very good friend of ours reminded me, Alec, are you telling me that you wrote 500,000 words in 1 year? And when she said that, when she pointed out that that was, see, I consider that to be about 68% of my ultimate goal, which doesn't sound like a great percent. In a grade book, that's 68 out of 100. That's a D. The 365-day challenge in terms of my actual goal, which was to do 800,000, I came out with a D. But outside parties told me that the actual number is 500,000 words. Um, and it's so funny when she said that, I wasn't thinking about the words. I was thinking about the time, the sweat, the days, the 365 days of this challenge, the writing after work, before work, the um, trying to get to bed on time, trying to rise early enough to write, trying to make ends meet, trying to be a better teacher, dealing with loss, tremendous loss halfway through the challenge, just heartbreaking loss. Yeah, like through all of that, publishing Children of Arc, through all of that, those were all experiences. And they were experiences of some very hard work and just a refusal to give up on a goal that I'd set for myself. And that's what I want you to take away. It's not that, if you write for 16 days, well, and then for, 100 days after that, you don't do anything that you wanted to do. And you think to yourself, well, that was a bomb. I'm never going to try anything like that again. Like, yeah, no, don't think of it that way. Think of it as you didn't give up. If you took up this challenge and you wrote through the year, even if there were some failures along the way, you didn't give up. You did not give up. You picked up that pen, you turned um well over 100,000 pages, blank pages, into complete pages. I mean, that is something you're able to do. I don't know if anybody's ever told you that. You can do that. If I can do it with all the challenges I had in my very subpar effort at this challenge, then you can. Absolutely. Write that much in a year. If you have 6 books that well, I shot for 6 and that didn't happen. So maybe let me say 4 or 5. You have 4 or 5 books you've always wanted to write, but never knew when you were going to find the time to write them. You're waiting for that vacation, that perfect vacation where nothing goes wrong, and you sit down and you write all this stuff. But every year it just doesn't happen again and again and again, and life changes, and now you don't know what you're going to do. Guess what? If I can chip away at 500,000 words in a year, so can you. I mean, you can probably do it a lot better than I could. So, I mean, if you are in my target audience, the ones who don't believe that you can put something of value on that page, my goodness, just do it. I'm not stealing from any celebrities here, so I'm not going to say it a second time, but it's listen, it's really rewarding to me just to look back at those little notes I scribbled and realize you spent a year doing what you loved and doing it better than you ever have in any previous year. I think as writers, that is something we should all strive for. We don't have to meet anybody else's standard of excellence. We do not have to meet a traditional publisher's. expectation. We should meet their standard. I think we should write quality content and well edited content. That's something that I'm really working on. But you do not have to meet anybody else's expectation. You don't have to measure how successful of a writer you are by whether or not you're selling as much as J.K. Rowling, or whether or not you are captivating as many different age groups as you know, the next author who's, or whether or not you're shelling out as many books as Stephen King or James Patterson, or you guys know what I'm saying. You don't have the 365-day challenge taught me two things: that I can do it and that I don't have to hold it to anybody else's standard of excellence. But if you go put yourself through something like that, you come out of it the other side a different person, ready to take on your next challenge with a lot more gusto. So I'm grateful that you all kept checking in with me throughout that challenge. I would encourage you to review The Children of Arc if you haven't yet, because we writers need reviews to get more people flock into our community. So please just go to Amazon and click that little review button. Andrew is starting a book review club initiative. I'd love for you all to be a part of that too. It only takes a few seconds and it makes all the difference in a writer's career. So please just click that little button. And thank you for supporting the 365-day challenge. All right, another quick break, very quick break. And when we come back, I'd like to make an announcement before I send you off. Here is a quick book promo. That's the last time I'm ever going to read word counts to you. You know, like I said, I wrote 26,000 words in a day. I'm not trying to prepare you for the day I write 30K, because you know what I realized? It doesn't mean anything, at least to me. It doesn't mean anything if you write a high volume of words if none of those words can sell. And I'm not talking about selling out. I'm not talking about selling yourself. I'm talking about selling. I'm talking about creating a product for which you can profit by the fact that people think it is good, that people think, wow, this is something worth spending my money on because this isn't boring me. It's not preaching at me. It's not lecturing me. It's not so riddled with mistakes that it's hard to read and hard to understand. No, this is good. This is good work. My sixth grade teacher, Mr. Bittner, said to me, if he goes to a restaurant, he doesn't want a giant dish of bad mashed potatoes. He wants a small, tiny, lovely dish of gnocchis that are so perfectly prepared, even though it's a really small meal, he's perfectly satisfied. Despite the fact that I write books that are a little bigger in size, I truly, truly believe that. I believe that it's meaningless to boast, first of all, of anything, and second of all, of 26,000 words if the words aren't good. So, my next initiative, which I hope you'll join at One True Promotion, is I want to stay motivated. I want us to stay trying to write every day. I want us to stay in communication every day and have a place where we meet up past the algorithm. Because if you noticed, Instagram, for example's algorithm is just ads. It's hard to find any of each other's content through all the ads that are posted. So I would love to create a space where we can meet up more directly and more often and just post together in a writing community. And what are we going to be posting about? Are we posting word counts? No. I want to start the Write Your Best challenge, and it is sponsored by Pen Night Radio. Pen Night Radio is about writing your best content by slaying your inner demons. Well, so is this. The Write Your Best challenge is part of that. I want us to get together in a community, and I'm going to be posting to you not how many words I wrote, but what I wrote today. I'm going to tell you what I'm working on right now. What story is it? What character am I spending time with today? What type of scene is it? Just share, spoiler free, share a little bit about what the actual content I'm writing is about. And the second thing I want to say is why it's so meaningful to me. If you're following my work, I want you to know why, first of all, I thought that this was of value to work on. And now that I'm selling it, why I think it's of value to you. I want to start talking about that more. I haven't done a lot of that since I became an author in 2017. That's going on 7 years now. I haven't done a whole lot of talking about the legitimacy of what we do, why a story matters, why a character matters, how a character relates to you, how this experience will be different than something you see on TV in a meaningful way. I want us to start talking about that every day. What did we write? And why does it mean so much to us? Not how does it check off boxes, but considering our own personal journeys. Why was this so darn meaningful today that if nothing else, I wanted to work on this today? And I realize the answer to that isn't always so complex. Sometimes it's, I couldn't think of anything else. Great. I want us to create a community where we literally post and talk about that, how this was all I could think to do today. Like, I want us to really get into supporting each other in a way that's very vulnerable, out there, and conducive to bringing more people in because they just see that there's a awesome, warm-hearted community forming here at One True Promotion. So the Write Your Best challenge begins now. I'm going to start posting every day about what I'm working on and why I love it, and I invite you to answer by doing the same. And as part of this, you are likely to see me bring back my Patreon account, which will also be associated with the podcast. Next week, we'll go into a little bit more detail about what that may look like. But for now, Knights, I thank you for listening to this message. I really appreciate you supporting the 365-day challenge. I hope that even if you're in a season where you're not writing a lot, you at least still enjoy talking about writing enough to join the community and talk about what we're working on and why we love it and mingle and learn from each other and just start slaying those inner demons together. So, Knights, thank you again and right on.